Joining me now is one of the co-sponsors of that legislation, Republican from New York, Congressman Mike Lawler. Congressman Lawler, thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Kristen.
I am going to get to the proxy voting legislation for new parents in just a moment, but I do have to start on tariffs that President Trump announced yesterday. I want to read you what Vice President Mike Pence wrote. He wrote, "The Trump tariff tax is the largest peacetime tax hike in U.S. history. These tariffs are nearly 10 times the size of those imposed during the Trump-Pence administration and will cost American families over $3,500 per year." What's your reaction? Do you agree with the former vice president?
Look, I think people have to look at tariffs in the context of the entire global economy. The fact is that the United States has had a far lower tariff rate than almost any country in the world. Some of our largest trade partners have had significantly high tariffs, barriers to entry, price controls. Europe has price controls on American goods all the time, including prescription drugs, which is part of the reason why Americans pay such high prescription drug costs. So there's a lot of things that the president is trying to tackle here. Obviously, there is consternation in the market, and that is something that we have to aggressively watch. But I think he's obviously trying to reshape the way that trade, engages around the globe. And from the standpoint of fair trade and free trade, the fact is that when you see how these countries have put high tariffs, high barriers to entry, and price controls on U.S. goods, that is not free and fair trade. The fact is we have had a negative trade imbalance for years. And, many of my Democratic colleagues, you can go back to 2008, you can go back to 2018, Chuck Schumer, Bernie Sanders. They supported tariffs. They supported it because, number one, they wanted to see U.S. goods being able to be exported. They also support it because they wanted jobs coming back to the U.S., including manufacturing jobs. So I think, look, if you look at it in a one-day, 24-hour period, of course, people are going to have a negative reaction. The question is how this plays out in the coming weeks. And what is the overall turnabout? I just saw Kosovo, for instance, come out and say we are, lowering all tariffs against U.S. goods. So the question to me is this an effective negotiating tool in the immediate? And I do believe it is a negotiating tool. I do not believe that these tariffs, as they were laid out yesterday, will be in effect long term. I do think there can be a agreed upon low tariff rate that applies across the board, which frankly, if that's the ultimate end goal, that other countries lower their tariffs on U.S. goods, that's a good thing for America.
Congressman, and you're right, the president today and in a phone conversation with me over the weekend did signal he is open to negotiating with countries if they offer him, he said, something big. And so the question is, what exactly is the definition of something big? But let me ask you, because as you know, so many people elected this president because he promised to lower prices. Are your constituents going to ultimately spend more on everyday goods because of these tariffs?
No, you have to look at the policies in totality. So tariffs right now are one end of it. And by the way, tariffs will bring in revenue to the federal government, which will help reduce overall cost for Americans, which is why we are focused on a tax bill. Part of the reason why I'm focused on lifting the cap on salt to provide immediate tax relief for my constituents. I live in one of the highest tax states in America, New York, Democrat controlled. My district, which includes Westchester and Rockland counties, has the highest property taxes in America. So lifting the cap on salt is going to provide immediate tax relief. Increasing domestic production of energy will help reduce the overall costs of goods and services and transportation and construction. And that is critical. And so when you look at the totality of the policy decisions that are going to be made, that is what is going to bring down the overall cost of living for Americans. It is the top issue. It's the top issue for me. And if you look, inflation is down, consumer price index is down. We obviously have to focus on bringing overall costs down. Tariffs are part of the president's economic policy. And so the question is, as this plays out, where does the economy go? I do believe the economy is going to boom when we get the reconciliation package done, when we get the energy policies in place, and obviously as the president negotiates on tariffs with our trade partners.
Congressman, and I want to get to proxy voting because I think what's going to be a little bit of breaking news for you. But before I get to that, let me just push you on this, because economists of all stripes say ultimately consumers wind up paying more for tariffs. If these tariffs do go into effect, do you not acknowledge that Americans will ultimately pay more for some goods? We saw that during the first Trump administration when prices went up on a number of different goods, from washing machines to tires.
Well, part of what we just did is pass a number of CRAs on some of the Biden administration rules when it comes to things like washer machines to help reduce the actual cost of it. But look, this is, I think if you look at something in isolation, you can sit and nitpick at it. But the question is, in totality, what do these policies actually do? And I believe the objective here is grow the economy, reduce the overall, cost of living and goods, and really bring about fair trade around the globe. Our partners have not engaged in fair trade, and that's the objective here. It is a negotiation, and I think the president certainly has been clear on that.
Yeah, I want to ask you about this legislation that you co-sponsored, just to let our viewers know. Basically, this would allow new parents to vote by proxy. Speaker Johnson tried to quash this. The House is now out. As a result, President Trump, Congressman, was just asked about it. Let me read you. This is from the pool note. So this is a first draft, but based on this pool note, he says, I will let the speaker choose. I like the idea of having a baby and being able to call in to vote. I would agree with it. Yeah, I am in favor. Your reaction to that, the significance of that?
Well, look, as the father of a 5-month-old, my colleague Anna Paulina Luna, who led this effort, the mother of, a baby that is about 1.5 years old, this is critically important. This is a pro-family, pro-life measure to make sure that those who do have children, especially mothers, there's only been 13 in the history of the Congress that have had a baby while serving as a member of the House. The fact is they should not be precluded from doing their job after they give birth. And so the measure was to allow for a very limited period, 3 months, to allow a new mother to vote by proxy, to be able to represent their district, do their job, while also taking care of their child. And I think, obviously, the president supports that. I think there's broad consensus on that. But, I respect the speaker on this. I understand his concerns about, constitutionality. I also understand many people in the conference have concerns about the idea of proxy voting and how it can be abused. I mean, you had members going on vacation and voting from, Caribbean islands. That's not what the intent is here. That's not what I support. This is about allowing mothers the ability to do their job right after giving birth. And I think that is certainly fair. And that's why I support the initiative.
Well, it's another story we'll be watching very closely here in Washington. Congressman Mike Lawler, thank you so much, and thanks for giving us your reaction to that little bit of breaking news. We appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or follow us on social media.